several bibliophiles have forsaken the use of regional language in their homes. It is my hope that UNESCO will not declare Yoruba or several other Nigerian languages as endangered. Chapter 2 of the text is quite academic, beginning as it does with a brief mention of semiotics, which is its area of specialization, defined as a study of science as a means of creating images. He then used his analytical framework to reinterpret Yoruba myths and folklore, suggesting that the Yoruba plurality predisposed the group to a federalist posture. The Yoruba myths of creation, explained as a collaboration of deities with the Olodumare, is seen as a joint venture of equals and illustrative of unity in diversity. The collaboration in ideas did not lead to loss of identity in promoting the common group. In the same way, the origin of Ife and Yoruba kingdoms is explained as a relationship between Ile-Ife, the center, and its offspring, the other Yoruba kingdoms. The relationship is collaborative, each kingdom keeping its identity, yet acknowledging Ife as a cultural head. I want to jump rapidly because I do know that the time is far gone. Apart from my offering definitions of several terms and concepts used in this text, Chapter 3 also examines two issues. The first is Awolow's hypothesis that a multicultural and multilingual country requires a federal system in order to achieve economic, social, and political development. The group then relates this thesis to dynamics of globalization, the experiential impact of Yoruba federalism on our sojourn in Yoruba communities of Eka, Ibadan, and Lagos. Most authors suggested have influenced his thinking on federalism. For his stance on language-based federalism, Awolowo was strongly accused of being a tribalist. Awolow's hypothesis is considered as cultural democracy, which the text described as the right to culture for all cultural or nationalist groups in a multi-ethnic or multinational state. Expatiating further, the book provides broader definitions of culture beyond its narrow confine to art, literature, music, to include both ideas, behavior, practices, and norms that define the ability of the people to govern themselves. The book advocates the idea of inclusive democracy, which will incorporate different value systems of groups, and also as an organizing concept and practices for development. Against the practice of including people, against the practice of inclusiveness is the alternative, a homogenizing system, which Professor Sekoni promotes concentration of power in elite groups and the domination of other groups arising from such concentration. It is what in Nigeria is seen as a system that seeks to concentrate power in the hands of so-called detribalized members of the economic, political, and social elite. It is not likely to have a space for inclusion of Yoruba, Edo, Fulani, Hausa, Kanuri, and Ijaw and Ibibio values. I will go further to argue that in such a homogeneous system, a dominant group might seek to promote its culture and value system as the template for integration. This may lead to resentment and conflict. The old Sudan provides a graphic example. From theoretical discussion of the links between cultural democracy and federalism, the text moves to empirical analysis of what he rightly labeled as conservative federalism in Nigeria. The book criticizes the erosion of regional autonomy in several areas and gives examples of over-centralization and overreach by the central government. This federal usurpation and centralization have had negative impacts. Dr. Folorunsho was mentioning the need actually to call back, to recall some of the power which the federal government gave itself. We'll come back to that later. I think it's frustrating, of course. I think in terms of Nigeria, I think it's debatable. There are some us who want in Nigeria of a different nation. In Nigeria, of course, based on what we call that, what I call pre-existing identity before the British made us together. This is not to say we want to build Nigeria, but we just want to be what we are. I think probably an expansion like that, especially since I lived in two different countries that practice federalism, the United States and Switzerland. The negative impact of the erosion of regional autonomy on the Yorubas I mentioned. These are arrest of. And I would say it's not only the Yorubas alone, but I can say the same thing with the Igbos, and perhaps even the same thing as with so-called other minority groups. Arrest of and solidifying Yoruba civilization, limiting improvement of Yoruba regional economy, arresting expansion of Yoruba culture for the benefits of people of Yoruba descent in the Americas, and arresting Yoruba culture from contributing to the improvement of Nigeria's economy, and that's the emerging global culture, particularly promotion of Yoruba tolerance of different cultures and religions as a basis for peaceful coexistence in the global setting. And I think that's extremely important, because in very late there was a book by David Legend, which of course mentioned, especially how tolerant we are. There's hardly a Yoruba family that does not have other traditional religious worshippers, Muslims or Christians, and they coexist peacefully with each other. There's no, although some might say, okay, this is a syncretism, but far from it, that is the nature of the Yoruba, because the coexistence, as he pointed out, of Yoruba quote-unquote deities who collaborate with Olodumare to, at least, form the art as we explain in Yoruba mythology. He concludes the section by observing that an underdeveloped Yoruba region without political and economic autonomy leads to the underdevelopment of a big chunk of the population of Nigeria. Correspondingly, a loosening of the past military structure with the intent to provide more powers and responsibilities to the region is likely to lead to further empowerment and development of the people. Questions of leadership, development, and federalism are addressed in Chapter 4 with the title Outstanding Constitutional Issues. Several questions are posed, including reasons for the recurrent crisis in Nigeria, why some Yoruba leaders are looking towards regional autonomy, and way out of the current frequent constitutional mess. In answering these questions, the text traced the history of federalism in post-independent Nigeria. Author pointed out that erosive military dictatorship reverted Nigeria to Yoruba centralism in January 1966, though well beginning, and was part of the reason for the overthrow of that regime. Though federalism was restored under Gowon, it was truncated under the Murtala Obasanjo-Yar'Adua regime in a gradual centralization of the polity. The 1979 Constitution, midway by General Obasanjo, altered radically the thrust of Nigerian federalism, expropriated the central government several items that once belonged to the regions. Professor Sekoni pointed out, why is the 1960 independent constitution had, quote, 44 items, 1946 had been wiped out between 1966 and 1999. Examples of federal overreach in the 1979 constitution would prevent development of ethnic nationalities and equity are recounted. I mean, one of these, of course, is the outlaw of state police. And ostensibly on the grounds that it may incite secession or be used by state governments as a cause for repression. I think, regrettably, I can't recall the Eastern region having a state regional police. And in fact, those who supported the federal laws had regional police. And they, the various governments under them, use this police for repression. And we know that, I mean, those of us who are not good enough to know, of course, what the Akari police did or what the Adeleke police did in Western Nigeria. You find a goat, a dead goat in your door, and then you'll be accused and taken away. Why is it true that state police may be used for repression as in the old Western region under an NDP rule, and northern region then under the control of MPC? Current federal police have been an instrument of coercion in federal hands, have been used for illegal activities by federal government during elections. Indeed, the present crisis in Rivers State has shown the misuse of the Nigerian police for political aims by federal agents. It is the work view of and practice of federalism that made Nigeria one of only 2 states in over 27 federations globally that have only one centralized police organization. In many federal states, there are police organizations under the control of municipal, local, county, state, and federal governments. Nigeria and Austria are the only federal states out of 27 countries with federal system that have one police organization. It must be added that the Austrian decision to have one police organization was through consensus. not imposed, not by decree. The book discusses revenue allocation, a vexed and divisive issue, noting the shift from 50% of revenue to state of derivation under the pre-military era to a paltry 3%, I think it's 30% now, under the present dispensation. The same thing, the value-added tax, which should have been a cost of development revenue for states that are host to the business from which the revenue are generated, are given as handouts to all 36 states. Professor Sekoni knows trenchantly that the 1999 constitution is unfriendly to both fiscal federalism and sustainable development in states and communities affected by oil and gas exploration and exploitation. Just to really refer to what Dr. Folorunsho just mentioned, coming in this morning from Mondo, I was stopped behind the state local government. I was riding a truck, and the gentleman said, well, I want to see all your papers. I gave all the papers. Oh, you don't have a basket for your vehicle? I said, basket? He said, yes. I said, I then said, why? He said, well, this is the internally generated revenue. I said, that's what you are now. You have to be able to stop a car on the federal roadway. You want a basket, and that you told me to park the 5,000 naira. Well, a basket would cost 150 naira. In essence, when you deprive the state of revenue, you then let them seek to be beggars. People of Nigeria from underdevelopment to development, if it is given to good leaders to manage, that's Professor Sekoni's word, means it's a good document, give it to good leaders to manage. In his view, that such a constitution could lead to the development of a Nigerian personnel is questioned. Indeed, except for some settler colonies, which became federations, such as the United States of America, Australia, Argentina, all other federations in which the inhabitants are indigenous have never had their identities erased for a national identity. No. And even when you come to think of the United States, even when you go to Chicago, you still have a Polish neighborhood. You go to New York, you have a Chinese neighborhood, you have a Chinese neighborhood. There are certain areas in Brooklyn which is occupied by Jews. So that identity is not erased. And when it becomes re-election, of course, they always vote people, even they vote people because they have allegiances. They vote people whom they share certain cultural identity. Indeed, I said rather both have existed, coexisted. The United Kingdom, which established Nigeria, is developing paths to Scotland and Wales. It did not try to transmute or squash and Scottish identities. Indeed, after 300 years of the Union Act of 1806, which united Scotland and England, Scotland is preparing to vote on a referendum, whether it remains a part of the UK or independent. In the repressive Abacha era, militias and the acolytes asked what Yorubas want. In view of the incessant calls for many Yoruba elites for restoration of the annual election of Moshood Abiola and for a sovereign national conference. Professor Sekoni, through discussions with different strata of Yoruba society, as well as his readings of print and electronic media, surmised what Yorubas want. Before interpreting what he said Yorubas want, he stated again emphatically, as done in earlier pages, that Yorubas do not want Nigeria to break. They do not want to dominate other ethnic groups, and in the same vein, do not want to be dominated. I think that's fair. I don't think any other Nigerian group wants to be dominated either. In addition, Yorubas will not wish to be prevented from organizing their region in ways that can maximize the welfare of their citizens. In terms of what Yoruba wants, authors say that the Yoruba will want to have a region within Nigeria with formal constitutional guarantees and authority to run governments in line with the principle of administrative, fiscal, and cultural federalism. The Yorubas also want the same for other nationalities in the country as well. This is indicative of his belief in equitable treatment of all ethnic nations, regardless of service. Professor Sekoni proceeded to outline what Yorubas think should be left to the central government. Of course, these are defense, foreign affairs, interstate commerce, currency, customs, and immigration, communications, and water resources, just as it was in 1960. In addition, Yoruba is going to have each region to have its own constitution. It was in practice before 1966, and is in practice in several other federations, such as the United States, Mexico, and Switzerland. Some of the political problems affecting the Nigerian Federation are a consequence of the unitarist 1999 constitution. In pre-military era constitution, the peculiarity of each region was reflected in regional constitutions. Divisive issues such as religion, with deadlock, at least 2 or 3 past constitution drafting committees selected by the military, was not in the 1960 and 1963 federal constitutions. The issue of Sharia was left to the norm. It is possible that had the pattern of 1963 constitution been followed, the periodic atavistic violence such as those of Boko Haram, and of course, antecedent before that, spurred by religious fundamentalism, would not have come to the federal level. Let us pause for a while. Let us think that maybe Boko Haram, as others suggested, is a political, is driven by political considerations. And of course, there could be an argument that it is, when you content analyze Nigerian newspapers, they play for amnesty for Boko Haram. Of course, it has rejected that. Let us answer again say that maybe the Northeast has its own constitution, where full Sharia is implemented. And of course, as I said earlier on, pardon me, let me be a little bit depart from this to say that, yes, there's Sharia in the Bible. There's Sharia in the Bible. Go into Leviticus, read Deuteronomy. It's there. But you also say, why is Sharia still current for Muslim brothers and not current for Christians? There could be reasons for it. But regardless, the question of faith and belief should really not have really been the federal responsibility. It's you and your God, and you and Allah. So you need to not bring it to a state constitution. No, you don't. You don't. When you do that, of course, you are setting alight the federation. There are very few countries that have mixed the two that have been able to survive. Look at Lebanon. Look at the progress of Pakistan. Fundamentalism arrests development, whether of the Christian variety or Islamic variety. Period. Several constraints in the 1999 Constitution that constrain state development and effectiveness are cited. These include, among others, law enforcement, as well as entrenchment of the number of local governments in the federal constitution, and many others. They therefore call for enhancement of state powers in business registration, driver's license, admission tests to universities and institutions of higher learning. I think Dr. Folorunsho has enumerated the problem of the federal government taking over education, and of course the disaster that followed when you have graduates who do not read or write it very well. The basis of election of some of them are questionable. Why don't we elect people directly, concurrently with National Assembly, to sit down, to discuss the constitution anew? I come to my short prescription, literally. Chapter 6 of text identifies several illusions led by the Yorubas. These illusions relate, among others, to the wrong idea that absence of good leadership is at the root of Nigeria's problem. This he quickly dismissed, though he admits that good leadership has impact on good governance. However, a defective structure can overwhelm a good leader. Another illusion is that the restoration of true federalism is not attainable because the House of Fulani would not permit it. He admitted that the present unitary state benefited not very much than any other group, including the Yoruba. He then focused on the views of some northern leaders, such as Junaid Mohammed. And these people, they are never elected, they just made themselves leaders, regrettably, and pronounce, making incendiary statements that would tear the federation apart. He is then, Junaid Mohammed is strident opposition to the proposal to increase funds for oil producing states. It's reported in several dailies. According to the gentleman, there is absolutely nothing settled about Nigeria. Quoting him, I dare say that not even the existence of Nigeria as a single entity is a settled matter anymore. quoted Article 116 from the Guardian of 2nd September. This is quoted from the books. Yet, we should be very careful of using the statement of Muhammad as representative of the North. The North is not monolithic, and tensions of religion, ethnicity, and class exist in the region. This is demonstrated in the Conference of Festour and Baptist states, as well as in the whole Northwest. A split up Nigeria, which one does not wish for, is not going to be a neat Manichaean division between the North and the South. Apart from it, the North might have problems worse than defunct Yugoslavia. Another illusion identifies that for the struggle for autonomy to succeed, violence may be necessary. He was very critical of this view, citing examples of countries where there had been peaceful transition from unitary to federal system of governance. Examples are Canada. I think every time there's an election in Canada, I think the party will go back. Always want to see how they prefer to pull out of Canada. It has never succeeded, but they give the opportunity to express its views. And I think right now, I think a few years ago, Parti Québécois was actually from the government in Quebec. And of course, there's the issue of Scotland, which is going to vote, and United Arab Emirates. Regarding views of minorities on federalism, he identified prominent so-called quote-unquote minority leaders who were active in the campaign for a truly federal Nigeria. Of course, mention was made of the illustrious Chief Anthony Egahoro, and even current governors of Delta State as well as River State want at least a true federal system of governance. I must point out that he argues, Professor Sekoni argues that a true federal system would not impoverish the North. It need not be. Let's face it, I think it need not be. We've seen what happened in Dubai and Abu Dhabi, where of course the Nigerian low-rich run to spend their money in those exorbitant hotels. Since it's no longer convenient to export money to America, to Great Britain, since I think the anti-laundering laws there, these what I call countries with loose laws will work on Nigerian naira converted into dollars to make themselves richer. And you look at Dubai, the same religion with the part of Nigeria, but they decided to interpret their faith differently. Another illusion, of course, is that once the Yoruba becomes the president, the federalization will be resolved. He pointed out the perceived prudence of Obasanjo, notwithstanding. It was the same General Obasanjo was in power as Secretary of State when federalism was created in Nigeria. Indeed, Chief Obasanjo's view of Nigeria is a unitarist. In Nigeria, where ethnic identity is plotted out, but his colleagues in the army and those that succeeded him as head of state were very sectional, always protecting and promoting the interests of the North over that of the whole federation. Ironically, as a politician, Chief Obasanjo has tried to use his Yoruba identity to build a place for himself among the PDP. Otherwise, why would there be this incessant quarrel within the PDP, Obasanjo faction and other faction there? If obviously you have no base in your home, it's going to be difficult when you're a leader. And I think that's why he went that. I mean, he will really form a treaty of at least a basis in terms of at least contradictions. And let me digress a bit, because I think I've had the privilege of meeting the Obasanjo many times when I was in Geneva. I used to call him the one-man non-governmental organization, because he was sure to meet UN leaders in Geneva. And luckily, I was privileged to meet him as then the chargé d'affaires in charge of the mission for 2 years. And one thing which happens me about him, of course, he would come. I said, I'm at the airport. First day I said, where are you? I said, I'm Muson Centre. There was no time to say, you're coming. Are you coming? You want me to take a taxi? I met him, and that began a series of conversations. And of course, one of the few things was a problem with the Nigerian Federation. He said he agreed that there really have been 6 regions. And of course, the second thing was, of course, well, how do you do this? He said, well, how do you do this? I made a few suggestions. He said, yes. He said, if they don't question the question of return to the question of the Nigerian army, but the army is full of politicians. And then problems to solve. How do we go about solving the problem? And then next time I met him again, this was after he was released. Indeed, I'm sorry to say this, some of these things are coming in my memoirs. There was a time the federal government was looking for him because he was an intercessor between the federal government under Abacha and the American government. He was a link between them and Donald McClellan in trying to negotiate the transition of Nigerian government. And there were times in which prominent Nigerians came to Geneva, especially which division was not involved. It was a secret mission. And the last time, of course, they were looking for him was to again call him. 1 a.m., 2 a.m., the minister called me, where is he? He's in the residence. Look for him. We need to speak with him. In any case, to cut it up so short. After he was released, and of course, we spoke with him. I told him, no, I was in New York then. So, can you come back to really? He said, no, I'm not coming back into government. Of course, by at least he has become a politician. A few months later, he came back, he became the president of Nigeria. And the rest, as I say, is history. Chapter 7 concludes the book and contains a series of detailed recommendations. I think I'll be fighting for time, I'm not going to go into details about that. But let me just say that, no doubt, the book of Professor Sekoni has enriched the discussion on the political structure of Nigeria and documented the urgent need for a truly federal Nigeria. Though some might consider several statements as controversial, yet they are presented in a very elegant and polite manner, which opponents of his view cannot but admire. The presentation is made in measured, disciplined, and friendly tone. The book in several sections call for collaboration amongst all Nigeria's cultural groups to redesign Nigeria in a way that will benefit all its citizens. North, South, minority, Christian, Muslim, and traditional religionists. The enterprise called Nigeria should not be seen as a zero-sum game, but a win-win for all. The book is a primer for what is to be done to save Nigeria from its straight-jacketed Praetorian constitution which promotes conflict through transfer of divisive, locally used to reach federalism. The constitution nurtures mismanagement through creation of several intrusive but effective bodies. The skies for all Nigerians, the Yoruba, Igbo, Hausa, Fulani, Efik, Ibibio, is to have a sovereign national conference which should discuss all issues about federal Nigeria except its dissolution. 4. For our sakes of our children, we owe it as a duty to have a truly workable federal Nigeria that promotes the identity and rights of its federating cultural groups and that provides life more abundant to all Nigerians. I thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. I'm sure by that detailed review of the publication, quite a number of us will want to go home with copies and also make copies available for